हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टू माय चैनल। आज हम कर रहे हैं MEG 7 ब्लॉक 6 शॉर्ट स्टोरी यूनिट 3। ये मनोज दास जी ने जो ट्रिप इनटू द जंगल लिखी है, इसकी करेक्टराइजेशन एंड नैरेटिव टेक्निक इसमें हम आज करेंगे। चलो करेक्टराइजेशन से स्टार्ट करते हैं। जस्ट वेट। Degeneration of the worst kind is common to the characters of this story. Raja Sahib was ugly, drained of all life from reckless indulgences, of late content with hovering around and brushing against and sniffing women. It was just for this benefit that he had arranged this outing. When Mrs. Mitty wakes up the next morning, she describes Raja Sahib as a pile of filth, half a dozen flies hovering around his bloated lips. Mr. Mitty and Mrs. Chakodi had fallen into a stupor on the floor, trying to crawl closer. Mrs. Chakodi had called Mr. Mitty a wolf on an earlier occasion. Her words sounded innocent, but she left the atmosphere sick every time she spoke. Mrs. Mitty is a bundle of hypocrisy and pretense. When an injured butterfly got crushed under a wheel of their jeep, she gave a shriek, her face all butter with pity. Mr. Chakodi used the moment to sympathize with her but actually tried to come as close to the butterfly face as possible. Mrs. Mitty calls him a snob who snores as a pig grunts. The same kind hearted Mrs. Mitty accuses Shamal of impudence and vulgarity when he refuses to shoot a pregnant deer. Shamal had his barrel pointed right at the head of the deer, but didn't shoot, and to the 5 pairs of venom spitting eyes, he explained that the deer was pregnant. But it means nothing to Mrs. Mitty. The same Mrs. Mitty who had shrieked when an injured butterfly got crushed under a wheel of the jeep. She cannot forgive Shamal for his impudence. Deep anger and frustration clog her voice. She is again on the verge of a breakdown, not because a pregnant deer was about to be killed, but because the impudent chauffeur did not shoot the deer despite clear orders to do so, pregnancy or no pregnancy. So much for her delicate concern for the butterflies and beasts. She sat beside Shamal, the impudent young man, who seemed not to care two hoots for their sentiments. Inside the bungalow, she manipulates to be left behind with Shamal, manipulates to fall into his arms, manipulates her game of flesh. She has no qualms about telling lies. To punish to punish Shamal for his ironic smile and to set at rest any suspicion Mrs. Chakodi might have nursed on this account. She concocts मतलब कहानी बनाती हैं an alleged assault and has the unsuspecting sleeping Shamal brutally bashed and kicked. She herself stands afar and laughs hysterically, a woman devoid of any morals, any conscience. The trouble is all them or are the same. The trouble is all them are the same. Total moral degeneration has left them hollow. The trouble also is that she represents a growing section of our society doing the same. अब हम करेंगे नैरेटिव टेक्निक. Unlike the only American who do not have any central narrator here, whose identity, presence, and comments could contribute to the meaning of the story, the narrator here is unknown. The effect is situation based. Situations which expose all the characters in their true light. The author builds up suspense to the point it becomes almost unbearable and leaves us there, leaves us to draw our own conclusions. A trip into the jungle reminds us of a very famous story, Lady or the Tiger. The protagonist in that story had the choice of entering one of the two doors, one leading to the beautiful lady and the other to the ferocious tiger. But no one, absolutely no one, knew which door led to heaven and which to hell, and no one knew what fate awaited the protagonist once his choice was made. He could have lived in sheer bliss. He could have been devoured by the tiger. The audience were left guessing. We are also left guessing by Manoj Das at the end of the story. Is Shamal alive or dead? If alive, the chances are quite remote. How will he manage to come out of the locked doors? Will the watchman help him? Once out, will he let the bygones be bygones or take revenge? He was left for dead, if nothing else. Was he eaten up, as Mrs. Mitty feared? All these questions are left unanswered. That is why we call it an open ended story. The narrative is quite straightforward. Now we'll do the sum up. इन बोथ दी स्टोरीज़, जो कि हमने पहले भी इससे पहले भी पढ़ी है ना, एक और स्टोरी जो कि एक तो ये है ना ट्रिप इनटू द जंगल, एंड दूसरी है जस्ट वेट द अमेरिकन द ओनली अमेरिकन फ्रॉम आवर विलेज, जो कि अरुण जोशी जी ने लिखी है. दो स्टोरीज़ की बात की जा रही हैं. In both these stories, the authors offer a critique of modern progress and advancement. In the rat race of name and fame, Dr. Khanna forgets his father, the man who must have made all imaginable sacrifices to provide his son with all possible facilities to reach the top. The group of five in Manoj Das story are brutal to the hilt. These men and women of means are devoid of any ethics or concern for others. They live only for themselves. Both Arun Joshi and Manoj Das compel us to look around, peep inside ourselves, and assess the role money plays and should play in our lives and relationship. The havoc that the power of money can bring about, and the arrogance of the moneyed people. Both these writers are deeply concerned with values that are fast disappearing from our lives and society. Values like love, filial dedication, familial commitment, and concern for the underprivileged. Just wait. Now, awareness leads to understanding, and understanding hopefully to a solution sooner or later. Okay, thank you so much. Please subscribe my channel.